Can we just...
Just hang on one second. Is a discussion of an update on the Saja Gardens cost certification review? Yes.
Okay. As far as the reorganization of the ZB, can we push that off till next month?
When we have a full board, I think that makes sense.
Okay.
How about
You may
Raj?
have to...
That's fine with
Feel
me.
comfortable?
You may have to send an email to Nancy, because I know she's been bugging Toby about
Okay.
the reorganization, so you can, I
This
mean,
is
just...
just a June, you know, we just had the
Right, they
election.
want, everything is, from what I was told now, they want everything done by the end of June.
That's fine.
Yeah, all right,
So,
well, that's fine. We need a full board for that.
That's what I'm saying, okay.
So we have a quorum and a couple of members are absent.
Yeah, we do have a quorum for this meeting.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
On to our topic at hand here, the cost certification review. So and I just want, again, I want to introduce the town CPA for this review. Denise Cataldo, I have that name correct, I hope? Thank you very much. And I understand you've already spent quite a lot of energy, taking a look at this. Why don't I just give you the floor and we can go from there?
All right, I wanted to outline,
Oh, excuse me.
Just one question.
Where is she from? I don't even know.
I'm from Marlborough, Massachusetts.
Are you, you know...
I have my own company, it's called Denise Cataldo CPA
Okay,
PC.
that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Yep.
I wanted to outline the procedures I followed in my examination so that you know what steps I took. So the first thing I did was send a list of items that I was looking for to Chris, Mr. Olson, for review for me, so I know what I was dealing with. He sent me over the independent accountant's report that he had, as well as some other information in regards to the permit process and that type of thing. I made an appointment, I hope I don't, I'm sorry if I butcher his name, Mr. Babu, I think was the CPA representing the developer. I made an appointment with him. He was extremely busy. He was leaving on vacation for 10 days. In fact, he's already gone. So the amount of time he could spend with me was extremely limited.
So that's the developer CPA you're
Correct,
talking
the
about.
one that did the cost analysis.
Yep.
How do you spell his name?
Bibeault. And he, unfortunately, where he was going to be going on vacation, which is out in the ocean, they have no cell service, so I couldn't even email him or internet.
That's a vacation.
I
That's a
couldn't email him
vacation.
if I had any questions after the fact.
That's a vacation. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Did she has an updated copy of this?
This is, yes, I gave her an updated copy. So then the next step was I met with, I actually went to Saja Gardens. I met with Mr. Ali, and I met with Peabody Properties, the management company of the property, to ask additional questions. And then I also had various email correspondence back and forth with Mr. Ali after I left regarding questions I had.
Were you able to contact his attorney?
No, I did not.
Okay.
So what I started with was the report itself, which I found very confusing right from the get-go. I just couldn't understand this report. And the reason why I say that is because the report indicates in the independent accountant's report, the very first page, the second paragraph up from the bottom reads that, in my opinion, the schedules fairly present all material respects, blah, 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 as of February 7th, 2018. Then you go to Schedule A, the very first schedule, and it's as of April 30th. His notes are also as of April 30th, 2019, the accountant's notes. So how can his notes be as of April 30th and his report be dated February 7th? It didn't make any sense right off from the get-go. So when I talked to him, what he explained to me was that he initially did his report in February 2018 when he said when the last occupancy permit or something had been issued. He, at that point, had accrued a number of accrued expenses to finish his report off. My understanding from talking to him is the state came back in 2019 and said, we don't want the accruals, we want the actual expenses. So please update your report. So he updated his report, but did not update his physical report here. He changed his schedules. He didn't change his report to indicate that he did an analysis through April 30th, 2019. So that explained part of my confusion, why there were two different dates here. So after that, we then started our conversation on the actual schedules themselves. So I want to, everybody's probably really familiar with this, but I'm just going to bring it back into perspective. In May 28th, 2013, the original developer, Leveler Developer, Inc., LLC rather, received a letter from the Department of Housing and Community Development to inform them that their application for site eligibility had been approved.
Wait a minute, what year was that?
That was in May 28th, 2003.
Okay.
Okay? Then on May 29th, 2003, Mr. Leveler made an offer to buy 94 North Main Street, West Boylston, for $490,000 from the owner at that time. On May 30th, 2003, he made a petition to the town of West Boylston for a permit, for a petition for a comprehensive permit to develop a 40B project. The description on the petition reads, presently located at the premises here are a multi-family home on 9.82 acres. All right. I have then we come up to the fact that Barry Savings Bank was Mr. Leveler's financing. Barry Savings Bank foreclosed on the property in 2012. My conversation with the state of Massachusetts says that they had the property appraised in December 2013. The appraisal came in at $800,000. Now, I don't have that appraisal. When I asked Mr. Rockwell of the state for if that appraisal included a multifamily home, he couldn't recall, and he didn't seem overly anxious to go look for it for me either. So I haven't seen that appraisal. So in January 31st, 2014, the land was purchased for $800,000 by Crescent Builders, Inc. from Barry Savings Bank.
How much?
$800,000. Of that $800,000, $500,000 was a loan from the bank, and the remainder was from Crescent Builders. So with that in mind, Crescent Builders started, I don't want to say construction, what they did in 2014 and 15, I'm just trying to give you a sequence of events here. They worked with a design, they paid a design consultant. They worked to get some permits. They started excavation of the land with their own equipment. They had their own equipment that they were using. So what happened was there were several different accounts from which expenses came for this project. And they would not provide me with the QuickBooks files that I asked for, but what they did do is print out QuickBooks general ledgers for me. So the Crescent Builders QuickBooks file doesn't have any balance sheet items. It just has expenses. I couldn't see any part of like a bank closing or anything like that. All I have is the P&L. So on those expenses, what appears are like interest payments to Barry Savings Bank, which obviously makes sense, some engineering, some architect fees, and that type of thing. Then it appears that what happens is that Crescent Builders then transfers the property to Sarja Gardens, LLC, in July 14th, 2015, for less than $100. That's how it appears on here. So this property the state made the agreement with Sarger Gardens, not Crescent Builders, just so that we're all on the same track, okay? Crescent Builders is a corporation, it's Crescent Builders, Inc. I cannot tell you what percentage of Crescent Builders, Inc. that Mr. Ali owns. I don't know that. I know how much he owns of Sarger Gardens. What I do know is what happened was all the expenses that were incurred by Crescent Builders was treated as a quote-unquote, supposedly, again, I haven't seen the books, so I can't tell you. I can tell you my understanding of what happened, but I can't confirm it because I didn't see the books, was that it was treated as a loan to Mr. Ali. So when Sarger Gardens records these expenses, it's considered equity from Mr. Ali because he took it as a loan on the other set of books, was what I understood, but I can't confirm that because I didn't see the books. But that's my understanding from the notes from the other CPA. We all on track here? Am I confusing anybody yet? We okay? All right. So then Sarger Gardens, there's a quit claim deed over to Sarger Gardens. Sarger Gardens gets a loan on November 18th, 2016, for the construction of $7.6 million loan from Middlesex Savings Bank as part of its program with the state to develop this 40B project. The 40B project agreement was dated November 14th, 2016, so the loan came in like 4 days later. All right? Okay. So everything to this point, including your paperwork, talks about 9.82 acres. 9.82 acres, 9.82 acres. Upon the conclusion of the development, the state hired Cushman and Wakefield to do an appraisal of the property. Cushman and Wakefield appraised the property at some $16.2 million.
This was after the project was completed?
After the project was completed, the evaluation was done January 28th, 2019, at which point 97.5% was occupied.
How much?
97.5% was occupied. My problem, or an issue that I have, is that in the summary of facts within the Wakefield-Cushman appraisal is the fact that the appraisal was done on property that's now called 92 North Main Street because you let that divide up. It was based on 6.88 acres.
That's correct.
Okay, so I had 9.28, now I have 6.8. I'm missing 2 acres.
And I can explain that.
Okay.
It's the back, if I don't know if you've been up to the property, but in the back of the property, up on a hill, is the additional land. He did not use that land. Supposedly, he was going to transfer that land back to the town.
Okay.
So the only thing that's accounted for as far as the land that was used for the project is what's actually there, which is the 6-point-something acres of land.
And the multifamily home that
That's
occupies.
that's a whole separate thing.
Okay, but the multifamily home was located on the 9.82 acres.
Right, you're right.
That he purchased.
Right.
Okay, so bear with me here.
Okay.
So he paid $800,000 for 9.2 acres on which there is a multifamily home. And my understanding from downloading your assessors tax records is that it's a 3-family home. That home still exists. That home is still on your records. It's now referred to as 94 North Main Street, and the apartment complex is now 92 North Main Street. So how can you use $800,000 as the cost basis for the land on this report if it includes that multifamily home and that acreage? Somehow that $800,000 needs to be allocated between the multifamily home and its land that it occupies versus the rest of the property.
Yep.
Okay?
So does it have anything to do with the fact that he came before us to get an A&R to split up the two properties?
Yes.
Yeah, but you can split it, but the property value is value, right? So he paid only 800,000 for the entire property.
Right.
Even if you divide it, this goes for some amount of money, right?
Okay,
So
but
this is-
he's paying separate taxes on the 92 and the 94?
Yep.
Okay,
No.
Okay, no, let's go back.
okay,
Oh,
I
sorry.
disagree with that. So here's my issue. Well, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Okay, so let's keep going. So in my quest to try to figure out what would be the value of the three-family, it was represented to me that the three-family had been sold. Your tax assessor records still shows Sargent Gardens as the owner of that three-family. I can't tell you what the status is. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong tax records. I checked the registry of deeds. I've done everything I know how to do. I do not know today who owns that three-family home.
Mr. Ali does.
Okay. So Mr. Ali owns that three-family home. So the issue I have is there has to be some type of value to that property in that house that needs to be separated from the 800,000 that's represented on this piece of, on this here as because the whole purchase of 9.82 acres was 800,000. So when I do a cost analysis for my 40B, my land cost can't be $800,000. Something has to be broken out for the value of the home and the land that occupies that home. So then my next situation is I do not know, how do I say this? I did additional research over the weekend, and I found 2 apartments in that 94 North Main Street being advertised on 2 different websites from 2 different agencies. And so I would consider that private property at this point, because it's not part of the 40B project from the sounds of what you just told me. So therefore, my concern is this: if that's private property, the whole thing was 94 North Main Street until you separated it recently, not too long ago, to 92, 94. So therefore, there was one tax bill for all of 94 North Main Street. There was one loan for all of 94 North Main Street from Barry Savings Bank. So the interest, the real estate taxes, and that type of thing needs to get allocated somehow between the house and the 40B project. And from what I can see, that was not done.
Was that in the Champagne Bibalt, was that when they did the cost certification, was there anything in there that shows that?
No.
There was nothing in there?
Nothing.
See, I don't understand that, because, not to take up too much of your time, but I was under the impression that when the developer goes out and has to do the cost certification after the project's done, okay, there's a state list of CPAs that he or she can choose from.
He's on that list, I think.
Okay, this company's supposed to be on that list.
It is.
That's supposedly, from what I've been told from all the different things that I've gone to, is that these companies are gonna stand by their reputation. So they're not gonna be fudging any of the books. They're gonna put out there what the developer gives them.
I
at
don't
least.
think anybody's fudging anything. I think it's just like a forgotten thing, like it's overlooked. Like everybody seems, even when I was talking to the state, I was talking to the head of the Mass Housing Project Development person, Mr. Rockwell, and it's like he even, like it's like this forgotten piece of land that everyone seems to have forgotten about. So my concern is that there's maybe some mixed costs in there that we're carrying costs for both properties, because again, it was one piece of real estate, one loan, and nobody's sitting there separating anything out. And in addition to that, I noted, and again, I am not accusing anybody of anything here, and I want to make that perfectly clear. All I can do is state the facts that I find, because that's what I normally do. What I discovered in my research over the weekend on these 2 different websites is that they were advertising the apartments as renovated kitchens, renovated bathrooms with a jacuzzi and all this other stuff.
This is in the house?
Yes.
Okay.
So I do not know, and I have one set of books for Saja Gardens. I cannot tell you when those renovations occurred. I can't tell you what funds were used to renovate those apartments. I can't prove anything because I didn't look into it close enough or ask any of those questions because I just found it this past weekend and the CPA is on vacation. I have no chance to ask him if that's something he looked at. Was he aware of it? Are those costs separate or anything else? Okay? So I'm
When is
not-
he due back from vacation?
It was 10 days from last Friday, so it might be a little bit of a while there. So.
He should be back before the 4th of July then.
Yeah, so that was my concern with the cost of the land, is that I think it's an incorrect value, it needs to be broken out. Then I reviewed the CPA's work papers for invoice testing. So normally on a cost analysis, he's supposed to, based on the reports he gets from the developer, pull invoices from all different subcontractors, and just like you said, kind of make sure, according to the state, that generally accepted accounting principles are being followed, that, et cetera, et cetera. And what I have here is his own testing sheet. And I also have his notes. In his notes, there's a note that says, National Lumber, report for contract, easier than looking at invoices. So what he did is he got a statement from National Lumber stating that there was some $9.2 million spent on lumber, but according to the general ledger, there was only 1.95 spent. And what it is that the report National Lumber gave him includes other projects that Mr. Ali is doing. So from the sounds of it, no actual invoices were reviewed. He just took a printout from National Lumber and says, well, it says 2.9, Mr. Ali has 1.9, so it must be okay. That's not standard accounting practices. That's not generally accepted auditing practices. That's not acceptable. In addition to that, there are a contractor that he paid $578,457 according to this. There are no invoices. There's no contract. What it is it's a carpenter that has had a long-standing relationship with Mr. Ali, that they've done a lot of projects together, and Mr. Ali just pays him. No invoices on his end, no contract, no nothing, it just gets paid. So there's $578,000 worth of checks written to somebody with no backup.
Is there a tracking? I mean, is there copies of these checks?
There is copies. My understanding is there are copies of the checks. And what the accountant did is he actually went and got letters from these contractors. And basically, the letter just says that we, at such and such a construction company, have been paid in full $578,456.75 for framing, siding, and finishing work at 92 North Main Street, Saja Gardens. So any contractor that he could not find invoices for, which were very, very, very large contractors, he basically just got them to write a letter. So what I did, and then there was, then there was confusion because there was an electrical contractor that he got a letter for, that he said there were no invoices for. And when I sat in front of Mr. Ali's office with the bookkeeper, she came out with a pile of invoices from that contractor. So I emailed the accountant and I says, I thought all these ones that you got letters for were because you told me you couldn't find invoices. He goes, I believe that was the case. And yet I got all these invoices when I was at Mr. Ali's office. There was another contractor that I questioned where the invoices were. They claimed that the accountant had it in a box in his office. So before the accountant left, I emailed him again and said, do you have a box in your office with invoices belonging to Saja Gardens that has invoices that you might have reviewed. He says, there's a box in my office, there's only one box, and it's not from this project, it's for another project. So where those invoices are for that particular vendor, I don't know. The other one, there was one that was $608,000 for a plumber. The plumber did not give him any invoices, but what he did give him was proposals. And so there was a letter from the contractor saying this is, and the proposal amount was differ from the amount that was actually paid to the plumber. So I'm assuming there were change orders or something. So again, no invoices, but I got a letter saying this is what he paid me. So what I did, just to test one of these letters, is I went back into the check register, the general ledger check register, and I put the dates down and the amounts paid to this particular plumber. And I did a test to see, did he really get paid what, because it's amazing that they get paid the exact same amount as what they're claiming on the cost analysis sheet. So what I found, which it was reasonably close, I was only off $434.50. Not a big deal, what I'm saying is, without invoices backing up what somebody got paid, you have no idea what project that person's working on, what services were rendered for that kind of money. You have no way of verifying when the work was done, how much work was done. So, and we're talking, you know, payments of $600,000, $300,000. I have one here that there was a proposal for $432,000, and what was actually paid to this guy was $644,000.
What was that for?
That was for the electrician. And that's the one that he claimed there was no invoices, and when I got to his office, he gave me stacks of invoices. Now, it's not my job to go through all those invoices and see what was in there, but I can verify that Mr. Ali had the invoices for those particular electrician. The most disturbing thing to me that I found in the notes in his review of invoices was, and I believe the amount's even wrong, is there is a note stating $225,000 to a countertop company. It said, work being done in exchange with Crescent Builders. What happens is Crescent Builders agreed to build a house for, I guess, the owner of this particular company. The down payment on the house was $225,000. So in the books, in the general ledger, there was a journal entry for $225,000 under countertops with no corresponding invoice, and the offset was Mr. Ali's equity. Now, I have a problem with that because, first of all, they're not building it for the countertop company, they're building it for the owner of the countertop company. So this is a personal, they're taking a company revenue and changing it into a personal thing. Do you follow me? Is everyone following me? That's not acceptable. That should have been disclosed in the notes to the accountant's report. In addition to that, what I found that was disturbing was under the expense countertop, there was a person that an individual that kept getting paid for installation of countertops, and each time it would say unit B2 or unit B105 or C108. It would indicate what unit the person was getting paid for. This particular person was a female. When I questioned it, what I found out was it was really her husband that did the installation, but they pay her, which fine, it could be her company and her husband works for her. I don't have a problem with that. So those installs go from anywhere from $350 to $500 each unit. And then this same countertop company, which I couldn't find any invoices for, would do something similar where they would say, we installed in unit 102, 108, 109 for $500, so you owe us $2,000 because here's 4 units. So I had 59 units accounted for as being counter installs for anywhere from 350 to 500, when all of a sudden there's a journal entry for $225,000. I only have, what, how many units left out of 80?
21.
So I got 21 units left, and all of a sudden, I got $225,000 expense for the 21 units that are left? Makes no sense. So that's an expense that I think needs to be explained better, possibly. And again, I think that should have been disclosed in his report, or even maybe not considered in his report, or deducted from the total expenses. This was a thing done by Crescent Builders, or it should have been appear as a payment to Crescent Builders on related party payments, because this had nothing other than him doing the install. There was no direct payment to this particular vendor for that $225,000. It represented a down payment on a personal home.
So in other words, he just flip-flopped things. In other words, he did a personal favor for work that he needed done. So it was basically offset. I'll give you the $225,000, I need $225,000 worth of work, we'll call it even.
Well, we don't know if it's $225,000
I understand, but I'm
worth
just
of work.
saying, that's
Right,
the figure
yes,
that you're using. And
Yes.
that's basically,
Yes.
oh, God almighty.
So I have no invoices to back that amount up.
And neither does Mr. Champagne, and they don't have that either.
His notes, this is his notes, when he would review testing of vendor files selected at random, he would list the particular vendors, put the total amount paid, put the total amount of invoices, and then would write no issues if he agreed everything. At the bottom, it says other testing. And these are the notes in that other testing portion where it just says total per contract, meaning he didn't look at any invoices, he looked at a contract. One wasn't even a contract, it was a proposal, and the amount paid was totally different than the proposal.
Was it a significant amount?
Well, yeah, so these ones, so one of them that I have was paid, it says per contract letter, meaning the vendor wrote a letter saying this is what I got paid, was $608,000. Another one was $578,000. Another one was $335,000. And the one that he said he was missing invoices, but Mr. Ali provided the invoices, was $628,000. So we're talking a good amount of money. And the fact that he took a printout from National Lumber instead of actually looking at invoices is also an issue. I guess the issue comes in is that, again, we don't know where the products are going or what's being audited on. And I mean, I could build my personal home, not buy enough lumber. You need the actual invoices. You need to look at the invoices. Typically, my experience has been with National Lumber is they indicate the address. Because you might have 10 projects going with National Lumber. So you indicate which address when somebody orders stuff, where it's going. So at least you can kind of confirm somewhat that that's where the product went to.
And there's nothing that shows.
I have no idea because I didn't go through any National Lumber bills. Again, understand that these invoices were back in 17, a lot of 16, 17, so they were filed away or they were boxed away. One I was told they were still waiting for the invoice for, which blew my mind. It's 2019, this project was supposed to be done, they're still waiting for an invoice, I was told. So I'm not sure what invoices Mr. Ali actually has, but you know, a suggestion might be to spend more time in his office and actually try to find these invoices instead of accepting these letters from these contractors saying, I got paid X dollars, I got paid X dollars, I got paid X dollars.
This is just mind-boggling. But it doesn't surprise me at all. So you have had no contact with Mr. Ali's attorney?
No, why would I have contact with his attorney?
Because the attorney is the one that, usually he's the one that does takes care of everything for Mr. Ali.
Oh, no, I had a direct contact, and I will tell you up front, Mr. Ali was very friendly. He, when I called him and asked him for things, he would provide them to me. I met with him. The only thing he wouldn't give me was his QuickBooks files when I asked for the QuickBooks.
What was his reasoning for that?
Just wouldn't give it to me. It was not the first time I've dealt with a builder who wouldn't give me their books. I mean, that's kind of par for course a lot of times, you know.
There is a person in the office.
There is. Her
Yes,
name is
sir.
Tracy, and
Tracy.
I dealt with Tracy, and Tracy, I had a little bit, well, we seemed to have a communication problem, because I didn't feel that I had an accurate general ledger, because the general ledger didn't show any revenue. So I said, you've been collecting rents for over a year. How can the general ledger not show any revenue? So what I understand is that because Mr. Bebo said he was only required to do a cost analysis, he did not look at any rent rolls or anything having to do with revenue whatsoever. So I went and met with Peabody Properties, which is located right on at that same address. I met with them, and I went, my procedure there was boxes of applications for the 40B, Section 40B housing, and there was, so I just picked up, these were all these boxes that had been rejected. And some of the boxes had mold in them because I guess they had a leak or something in some closet they were keeping them. But I picked the box that didn't have mold and I used that box and I examined. So what I did is I opened each of the folders that had an application in it, just for that one box. And my procedure was to go through and see why, you know, did they have a letter in there telling them why they weren't chosen? Like, was it because they had, you know, they had bad credit, or that they didn't show up for their appointment, or they didn't provide the information? So each one typically had a letter in there. Some of them just had the fact that the person just withdrew their application. I was amazed at how many applications came from Boston, West Roxbury, Dorchester, like far away. And Peabody Properties said that wasn't unusual because people look at their name and think they're more towards Boston. They didn't realize that the project was out this way. So my first instinct was to review those files and make sure that they seemed to be okay, that they were doing the correct procedures, and that appeared to be fine. I then asked for files for current people that are renting. And they were in the process of updating them, but they gave me 4 or 5. I shouldn't have let them. I had them give me 5 files. Typically, that would be something I would make them. I'd pick out the files. I also asked them for rent rolls. So I asked them for the rent rolls for March, June, September, and December of 2018. And I went through folders of current tenants, like 4 affordable and 2 non-affordable, to make sure that there's documentation in there as to their earnings, that they confirm their W-2s, they confirm their assets, they did Corey checks or whatever have you, and all those documentations seem to be in there. Mr. Ali gave me his contact phone number at Peabody Properties, Justin, and I called Justin up. And because the reason why I called him, because it was very confusing to me, is Peabody Properties collects all the rent. It goes into a bank account that they control, that they have signature on, as well as Mr. Ali. So I guess my understanding is what happens is that they transfer, Mr. Ali transfers money from this bank account over to Saja Gardens, and then they use that to pay for repairs and maintenance or whatever have you. They then give, I don't know if they actually give the QuickBooks file, they write things on a piece of paper, it wasn't clear to me. They give the information back to Peabody Properties, and Peabody Properties produces a profit and loss. And that's what's used by Mr. Ali to file his tax return, is my understanding.
So this is a bank account that's in both Peabody Properties' name.
I didn't see the bank account. I can't tell you whose name it's in.
Okay.
I'm just told that Peabody Properties has the bank account. They reconcile it every month. They record the activity in it. So none of that activity is showing up over here inside your Darden's QuickBooks files. It's all over here in Peabody Properties files. So I confirmed, I did transfers between the two to make sure that there was transfers. There was only 2 transfers I couldn't account for, and they were like $2,000 a piece. They weren't anything major. I went back and forth between the two to account for the money that was transferred. I saw there were 4 payments that said online payments. I emailed Justin, I said, could you please explain what these online payments are, as they don't appear inside your Gardens books, what are these for? And he immediately sent me a thing over showing me, one was for, it's called Multifamily Utilities. It must be a utility company around here, I don't know what that is. There's another one for Middlesex Savings Bank, interest payment on a loan. And then there was 2 other payments that I don't remember at this point what they were. I've also, I had no access to Peabody Gardens books or bank statements or whatever have you, I meant Peabody Properties. So all I had was the printout that Justin sent me, and I was satisfied with the way the rent process was working or seemed to be working. As far as, were there applications, were people told why they were rejected, was information in the file. Only once in a while, I did find 2 or 3 files that all I found was an application and nothing else in the file but the application. But I looked at close to like 20 files, 20 or 30 files for applications when they originally were doing the lease-up period.
Because I know that when they first were doing it, they came and they had like an open house here.
Yep.
Where they were explaining to everybody. But that Peabody property, they have changed, that office and those people have changed so many times in the last 2 years that it's, I can understand why there may be a situation. The people that originally came are don't even work for the company anymore.
Oh. I did find out that Mr. Ali's daughter worked for Peabody Properties during the lease-up period. I don't know if that was to provide some stability because of the change. I have no idea.
So basically, there's a checking account that Peabody Properties collects all the rent. Mm-hmm. They put it into this account, mm-hmm. and then Mr. Ali takes from that account as needed for whatever needs to be, like plowing during the winter, landscaping, any kind of,
He can, well, he's borrowed money from several of his other companies. I actually did an Excel spreadsheet trying to trace the deposits, where the money came from that went into the account during construction, that he got credit for as his equity. And what I found is at least 5 other companies that the money was coming from. How those companies are set up, what his ownership in those companies are, I don't know. But during the process, I also found payback. So say he takes money from that apartment over, he might repay $20,000 to Crescent Builders, because Crescent Builders had loaned him money during the process when he was building. He might take $100,000 and pay back After Apartments, or I don't know.
After Terrace?
Yeah. So there's loans.
Afra Terrace is not a company, right?
No, Afra Terrace, that's the other 40B project that he owns.
So there was money, it was a real quick loan. Afra Terrace gave him $100,000, and then $100,000 went back to Afra Terrace. So it was in and out type of thing.
Maybe he collected the.
So let me ask you a question here. On these 40B projects, when you have a management company that's taking care of the management of the property, and they have an account and they have all the money, the developer is taking money out of that account, but the money that he or she is taking out of that account should only be used for that particular project.
Correct. Because and that's right in the 40B agreement that's
Is that
signed.
happening? From what you can see, is that happening?
I can't tell you that because, again, like I told you, the three-family has renovated apartments. I don't know where the money came from to renovate those apartments. Did it come from Crescent Builders? Did it come from the money that he transferred back over? I can't tell you that. I don't know. And I don't know when those renovations were done. They could have been done years ago, and they're just advertising them now as renovated apartments.
No, because when he first started the project, the board, we authorized him to use the house for his office because he didn't have a trailer up on the property.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Okay,
The agreement is that as soon as he got some land leveled off
Yep.
and he could get a trailer up there,
Yep.
that he would move the office from that house
Yep.
up to the trailer, which he did. And then, I don't know, maybe a year after he started the project, he came before the board and asked to do an A&R. And that was to separate the project
Yeah.
from the house.
yeah,
At first, we weren't sure if we were even authorized to do that, because an A&R is only done by the planning board. But after conversations with people more knowledgeable than I was, because I was the chair at the time, they told me that because only on a 40B project, and only because the fact is that the ZBA acts as the planning board, that they could do an A&R. So we did it the right way.
Yep.
You know, we didn't get in any conflict or any problems, okay?
Yep.
So Crescent Builder, from what I understand, is the main company. And then he has all these little subsidized companies from that. Sergeant Garden is one, and then there's a few others too,
yeah, quite a few.
quite a few.
Yeah.
So I wasn't I thought that when we did the A&R, that basically he was separating the two properties. And so that 92 North Main Street, which is the 40B project, was one,
Yeah,
build.
Yeah.
And then 94, the house.
Yeah.
Was a second. So it was two separate entities,
no,
okay?
yeah.
So
according-
he should be paying two tax bills.
Well, it is, well, I think now, after it's separated, it's probably two different entities. But what I'm saying is, I can't tell from looking at the tax bill, because he'll pay like $45,000 in taxes. I don't know if part of that's for the house and part of that's for the apartment. I don't know what it belongs to. Because I didn't see the backup to that $45,000 payment. So I don't know what belongs to what. Or you pay a water sewer bill, what are we paying for? Are we paying for the house? Are we paying for the apartments? I don't know. I'd have to get to the town and see, what's the bill for the real estate taxes, how it got paid, or, I'm sure the town clerk or the town tax collector or somebody has all that information. It could be that he's doing everything right. It's not apparent to me from looking at the general ledger that I have what's correct and what isn't. I can't tell you.
So, it looks like, you have a lot of questions to be answered.
I do. There's a lot of open questions
So
left. The problem is the problem is the state wants an answer from you within a week. The accountant's not available in the week that you have left. And, I'm out of people to ask questions to without sitting down with the accountant
And you
and trying
get
to
a-
find out, is the box in his office, the missing invoices? Why didn't he look at the national lumber bills? How come he said the electrical company had no invoices when I go to Mr. Ali's office and there's invoices? Why didn't he allocate the purchase price of the land? I got no one to ask questions to.
Can you extend?
We can always ask.
Well, the thing is, it's not a matter of asking. We need to tell them that there are too many unanswered questions. There's just too much shenanigans going on, and, things that we need to know.
I don't want to imply there's shenanigans going
No,
on, okay? All I'm
believe
just
me.
saying, we don't know the facts, so you can't
All
say
right, so
something
we don't
like
know
that.
all the facts.
So you
But
get the
there's still
facts.
unanswered questions.
There's still a lot of
And we can
unanswered
highlight a
questions.
couple of those in our request.
And
for-
the thing
for an
is
extension.
that, like she said, the gentleman that did this cost certification is now on vacation. He's not going to be back until the 1st of July. He has no communications, so it's not like she can call him on the phone. And besides that, he's on vacation, he's not going to probably answer any questions. So they basically have to extend it.
Why don't we get some supporting documents from you?
Yeah.
Some summary of your findings. Maybe we can attach that summary
To the
of
report.
findings, rather than the board has to say something.
Other than Mr. David, the guy from MHP, I should know who he is.
Rockwell.
David Rockwell. Have you had a chance to talk to Amanda Rowe?
No, I didn't talk to her, I just
Okay,
talked to
because she's
him.
she's the senior loan officer.
Right, she's the senior loan officer.
Okay.
There was a point made to me that there's two approaches to reviewing the cost analysis. Well, there's two approaches here. One's cost approach and the other's valuation approach. And that it doesn't seem like a lot of credence is given to the cost analysis, because under the valuation approach, it's valued at 16 million. He owes 8 million, so he has 8 million in equity. I have, again, I have issues with everybody, right? And I don't mean to have issues with everybody, I'm just stating facts. It appears that the occupancy permit, or the last occupancy permit, if the accountant's correct, was issued in January, February of 2018. So a valuation should have been done in 2018. The state did not have a valuation done till 2019. An old valuation that was done for Rockland Trust, who was originally going to finance this, showed that in July of 2018, they predicted the project would be worth about 13.8. So I don't know, by delaying the valuation a year from after completion, and real estate market changes in a year, did that affect the valuation report? Was that valuation report done as of the year before, when the project was completed, or you know, or as of that date, April 2019? You know, how much did the real estate market change between the 2 years? Maybe it's not significant enough. Maybe 3 million isn't a big deal and the state's okay with that. I don't know.
Well, see, the thing is, and just to give you a little bit, when Barry Savings Bank took over the land, okay, the comprehensive permit was about ready to expire, okay, in October of 2013. They came before this board in March of 2013 and asked for a 3-year extension, okay? There was a lot of, you know, we didn't know, it was a brand-new board, we weren't sure what was gonna happen. We had, you know, contact with town council, you know, we got everything, we issued it to them, okay? It was shortly after that Barry Savings Bank, like you said, sold the land to Mr. Ali, and he took over. Now, Mr. Ali's comprehensive permit, it was gonna expire in October of 2016. We were still having problems. This board had to give him a 2-month extension on that, because there was just some things that were going on. He hadn't gotten paperwork from Mass Housing Partnership, and, you know, the accountant still was working on, you know, they were still working on a lot of things. So we had to give him a 2-month extension, which we did. And then finally he got it. So when you're saying that, you know, 2018, you know, that sounds about right, when, you know, everything was, you know, all taken care of. But I know that on home ownership, you know, they can't do a cost certification until all the units are sold. And that's what happened with the other project that we have in town that he did at After Terrace, which was all home sales.
I think this is mine. Sorry about that. There was writing on one of these pieces of paper on the
Oh,
back
no.
of it.
On the back of it?
Was that, did I have it on yours? I just want to make sure.
Is
it's
there any
on it.
writing on the back of yours, Pat?
Did I give you the wrong one?
Any writing on the back of yours? No?
Okay, there you go. Thank you, okay. So I just want to make sure I didn't give anyone anything with writing on it. So my issue I have is that there's a lot of questions left, and I didn't put all my findings in a report, because I was trying to keep the cost down, because it takes me, I know it sounds crazy, but it takes me hours to write a report, because you're trying to be, you know, correct, you're trying to make sure your language is correct, everything's correct. So that's why I came here without a written report. But I just think there's a lot of questions left to be asked, and a lot more analysis that could possibly be done that would answer those questions.
So what do we do now?
So I don't have that answer for you.
Okay.
So I would suggest you talk to your advisor, counsel, legal counsel, whatever, to decide how to answer. I think you have the ability to answer, and I could be totally wrong here, because I did have this happen in another town that I dealt with. I think the response was, we reviewed your report that you sent us. We have issues with the report, and so therefore, we would like, not just the additional time, extension time. You're trying to say, we have problems with the report. It appears additional analysis needs to be done, and I don't know what happens from that point with the state, where you go with that.
So do we need any supporting documents from her?
Yes, we do. I think basically, I know that it's a cost, it costs, but we need to have these facts, because when we go to MHP to ask for an extension, we should have all that information and provide it to them and say, okay, look, we hired an independent CPA to do this, these are still the situation. She is not able to talk to the CPA that did the cost because the gentleman went on vacation and was not available. They have to, because just to go back and say, well, we have an issue,
Right.
they're gonna say, well, what are the issues? If she gives
and then
us,
it's a difference of opinion. It's almost like anything. You go to a doctor, and one doctor gives you one opinion, and another doctor gives you another opinion. In the other CPA's opinion, I guess the letters from the vendor saying he paid me X dollars was sufficient. In my opinion, it's not sufficient. So we have two different points of view in that situation.
No, not only that, there are so many other issues are there too, which definitely you need to clarify before you say anything.
Yep.
So we do need to we'd like to know.
Yeah, so how about this? So first off, the first issue you raised was a good one, that the developer CPA is just, not reachable during this period of time when it would be really helpful. There's a couple, yep, I'll be right there. There's a couple other things that probably, with a little bit of your help, we can just list one or two other particular things that specifically
The
say,
biggest one,
I
I
found
think, is
this
the
and we
cost
need
of
to
the
look into
land.
it.
It's the most obvious.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
that's
great.
the most
We
obvious.
can start there. Now, we've already asked and received 2 extensions without really providing any detail. Maybe this time around, we provide a little bit more detail and say, we need more time because of this and because the CPA is unreachable, and see what happens and go from there. You had a question.
If the state insists on doing the value analysis as opposed to the cost analysis
Which they have.
that they have, will the information you provide make any difference to that?
Well, I talked to an attorney regarding that, and I was told that the town, it depends on the town's place, but you have a legal obligation to review the cost analysis and make sure that it's correct, is what I'm told. I have no idea. That's something you could talk to your counsel about too, what your obligation is. And then how does that affect it? Because the original loan, my understanding is the original loan was 7.6 million, or 7.6, from Middlesex Savings.
Right.
Mr. Ali's loan is now 8.6 because they gave him another $1 million based on the extra equity, quote unquote, that he put in the business. So my concern is that equity number correct at this point, given how would the state view? In the past, I had a situation where somebody couldn't document the expenses, so the state subtracted those expenses out. They didn't allow them. Obviously, those buildings were framed by somebody. So the issue is we just don't have any invoices from that guy that framed the buildings. So I'm not a builder. I don't know what a reasonable cost is to frame those buildings, if what he paid that gentleman is reasonable or not, or how the state views that if there's no backing, no supporting documentation.
I'm just concerned about this value analysis versus cost certification, cost analysis. And little as I understand, the market analysis is less detailed and less specific. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, and so therefore, the information you're getting, would it have any impact on the value analysis?
My only point is I'm confused as to why the valuation was done a year after the fact. and what would have been the value if it was done at the
So we
proper
can
time
raise-
a year before.
So you can raise those pertinent questions with the value analysis.
I would think so.
Okay. Because we want to spend the money wisely.
Right. Yeah, and that's a great point. Thank you for raising it, because you're right. So we can't, I think ultimately, we don't have control over which method the state is going to choose to use, or MHP is going to choose to use in reviewing whatever ultimate conclusions you come up with, right? We can't control how they're going to view that, but
I think, can we make a strong statement that we really want a cost certification, a cost analysis done? Can we get that information across? Can we say to
Yeah.
MHP? I don't know.
I don't see why we can't.
And to her point, I mean, it sounds, I mean, my impression is, yes, is that we actually have a duty or an
You
obligation.
have an obligation under
To do
the
that.
law, is my understanding, and I
Right.
could be wrong.
Yeah.
To review the cost certification, and what you're saying to the state is you approve the cost certification and all the numbers are right. So if you don't correct the cost certification, I don't know what the implications are for you, or if there are any consequences,
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
Okay, let me just ask you this. After reviewing what Champagne and Bibalt did, their cut, what did they come up with as far as a percentage, as far as what he made, as far as the percentage? Because you
Well-
can only make a certain amount.
Well, right, so they're saying, so they were looking at what this was establishing was the limited dividend that he could take each year. So what happened was, on this one here, I believe it was, so on attachment C, they determined that the dividend, what was it? I think it's this one. Was it this one? I think they had the dividend, like one dividend it being 700,000 or something, and the other dividend being like 300 something, I think. I'm not. What's the other one?
See, I guess what I'm trying to ask you is that on these 40B projects, the
Right.
developer cannot make more than 20%.
I think it's.
No, though, that's for housing.
Yeah.
For apartment rentals. Rentals are different.
Nope, I was told by MHP that it's not. It's still 20% on rentals.
Because what they have is a limited dividend, and that dividend is, what they do is they look at the profits each year, and if the profits exceed that amount of the limited dividend calculation, then the town shares in the excess. And, I was told it was 10%.
All right, well, that's something that we need to talk to MHP, because I talked to them last week, and I was told that it's 20% on both rentals and home occupancy.
Okay. And that's a percentage of equity.
It's percentage of the net like the profits
Yeah.
that he can make, what they call limited dividend each year.
10% of profits.
The definition's pretty clear in the agreement that they signed. The agreement says, mortgage agreement, they have where is it? The definition right here. So, it says that the limited dividend is the aggregate distributions permitted to be made to the borrower from time to time as calculated pursuant to the annual limited dividend financial report. The other thing is that he's supposed to give an annual report prepared by the borrower on a form prescribed by the lender each year. So he's supposed to be giving financial statements each year to them, and I don't know, my understanding is this is the first report the CPA's done. So I don't know where anything stands on that.
Well,
And the agreement's supposed to be
Peabody
for
Properties
17
is
years.
supposed to do a certification every year of the renters, especially the ones that are affordable.
Oh, okay, yeah.
To make sure that their rents, that they
Right.
haven't gotten another job and making more money.
Right.
They are then supposed to, from what I understand, they are then supposed to be making a report to the subsidizing agency.
Gotcha.
In this case, it's MHP.
Okay.
To show them that, you know,
Yep,
it's just like the project that's over here across the street, they're supposed to do the same thing.
yep,
The management company sends to the subsidizing agency every year that they have done, reviewed all
oh,
the
that's,
tenants.
okay, yep, okay. So, but, yeah, my understanding is it's 10% for the limited dividend. That's my understanding of
Does it
how
look
this
like he
works.
went over?
No,
Okay.
no, it does not look like, yeah, it says here, the rents for such a, no, that's not it, sorry. No, I'm not sure, but my understanding was it was 10%. But, I guess my concern is whether, if the report is inaccurate, I don't know, you'd have to check with your counsel as to how that impacts your liability or what obligations you have.
Well, I think we have substantial cause to go back to MHP and say, look, we had an independent CPA come in, and they raised a lot of questions, you know, unanswered questions, that before we sign off on this, you know, and before you sign off on it, we need to have these questions answered. So we're gonna need an extension, and she can use the, you know, she can tell us that, you know, hey, the guy that did this, that she needed to talk to, was on vacation, you know, and she wasn't able to ascertain a lot of information from him until he comes back from vacation. So I don't see, so I'm all for this. If we have to spend more money, then that's fine.
Would you choose a date, excuse me, Chris?
Yeah.
You know, they keep giving through Nancy a week,
Mm-hmm.
and June 30th. What's a reasonable date? that you
July
want?
31st, 2019. That's a reasonable date. That will give
1
us
month?
all the information. She'll have plenty of time to go
What do you
back.
think?
She'll have plenty of
Given
time
the-
to go
Well, the
back and get
CPA
all.
also has another situation, I'd rather not
Yeah, no problem.
disclose,
No problem.
that's tying up his time.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how much access I'm gonna have to him or the records.
yeah.
And then it's just a matter of Mr. Ali going to whatever storage facility he keeps his records to get me anything. I mean, I can definitely give both of them a list ahead of time of everything I need. I've already approached the subject of the $800,000 valuation with Mr. Ali, and it didn't go over very well.
So the other suggestion that I would make is that you as the chair have a conversation with town council and let her address all of this information with Mr. Ali's attorney, Mr. Haverty. Mr. Haverty will be able to get all these documents, but he probably wants to get it just as much straightened out as anybody else does.
He was very cooperative, I have to admit.
Yeah, but
he
if
was
he's not
very-
giving, if he's not giving you the QuickBooks and he's not, you know, he wasn't very
Well, the other
resourceful
stuff
on the
was in-
$800,000, then, you know.
Well, yeah, it
he's
was a
hiding
matter of,
something.
it was a matter of disagreeing on the valuation of the land. But he was very cooperative in trying to get me records. He just kept saying that was in storage, or the accountant had it, and I can't prove whether the accountant had it or not, because he's not here to even look in his office. So, though, I just kept running into,
So what do you
walls.
think of, what is the reasonable time to ask? You are the one going to do the work.
I mean, I can do it tomorrow. It's just a matter of,
No, but, you know,
getting
you-
people
you
to
are
get me the
saying-
records.
No, you are saying, you know, the records are fine with Mr. Ali, but you also say something about the other CPA.
Yeah.
So you may know,
I don't know
What's-
him. I
but,
met him that first time the other
I
day.
know, I
yeah.
know, but you are saying there may be he may be busy with something
Yep,
else.
yep.
So to get,
I don't know if the state's gonna give you, I'm not even sure they'll give you to July 31st. I mean, that would be great if they would, I
We can
guess.
ask.
We can
That's all we
ask.
can do is
Ask.
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 And, you know,
If they say no, they say
because I'll
no.
tell you right now, until she has satisfied me personally with all the questions that she's asking and have been answered, I will not sign anything. And I will not agree to
so what
anything.
will happen if you don't sign it?
Then it'll be MHP's responsibility as far as I'm concerned. You know, we have an obligation. We did the 40B project. He has to come back and give us the information.
Then why they are forcing you to sign in with the extension, why they want to close it quickly?
So they are supposed to give us an opportunity, which they've given us, to do this independent cost review.
Yeah, but they know it
right?
takes time, right? CPA to
yeah.
CPA, and also the town meeting.
Exactly,
Town,
exactly.
ZBA meetings.
So,
And if you give a big extension, that's not,
yeah, so let's
what's
leave
the
it,
hurry for them?
Well-
I'm just for me to understand.
let's leave it at this. And in
Yeah,
in
okay.
fairness, I think, the second time an extension was asked for, we suggested a date, and they said yes. So it wasn't, okay, but we'll only give you a week the second time around.
Oh, okay.
It was, we suggested a couple of weeks, and that's what they gave us.
Well, then the
So-
question I would ask MHP is, if you're only gonna give us a week, and we can't get all the questions answered, what are we supposed to do?
Then we'll have to, I guess, go back to them at that point and see if we can.
Well, that's why I'm saying, ask for July 31st.
Yes.
See what they say.
Yep.
Okay?
That's what
All they can say is yes or no. But if we have documentation to show them why we need this time, all these questions that need to be answered, the CPA was not available.
Yep.
You know, what's the evaluation, the $800,000, you know, now that the two properties are separated. You know, we need to know the answers to all these questions, and she can only do so much.
Right.
You know, and so I say, ask for July 31st, okay? Hopefully by that time, she'll be able to get a hold of that CPA.
And I guess, my other thing is, I'm not sure what his obligation is, because again, it's almost, I don't want to say it's incomplete cost analysis, but invoices need to be looked at. So I'm not sure if it's his obligation, and this is something we'd have to ask legal counsel, if it's his obligation to go back through all those invoices, like that he said he couldn't find invoices and Mr. Ali produced them for me, you know, to go look at the National Lumber invoices, I mean, if for me to go and look at those invoices, you're talking probably 2 days of my time to just go through invoices. So I don't know whose burden to pay at that point. Is it me who's supposed to be doing the review? Is it him going back and redoing his report? I don't know where that line crosses, in all honesty.
Well, here's a suggestion, okay? If she can get all these invoices and she needs any help, I'd be willing to go and help her. You know, and it won't cost the town anything. I'll do it on my, because to me, this is an important fact. We need, this is a developer that we're constantly having problems with, and so isn't other towns. We need to nip this in the bud. And until DHCD, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, makes out a naughty list and puts developers on a naughty list, then this is what we have to do, and damn it, we're gonna do it, and we're gonna do it right, and we're gonna get it done right. So if she's gonna need help to do it, I have plenty of time, you know, I only work 2 days a
I don't have
week.
any time.
And I will go, and I will come and help her if she needs the help. All
I
she has to do is
I
ask.
just want to make it perfectly clear, I'm not accusing
I
anybody of
and
anything
I
here.
understand that,
I just don't
and I
have the
understand that.
facts to give
But
you
the
one
thing is,
answer or
you
the other.
brought-
I want to be perfectly clear on that.
Right, and I understand that, but the thing is, you're asking legitimate questions that I personally feel need to be answered. I'm
Right.
tired of these things just going through the loops and not getting answered. We need, this is a 40B project, and this is something that the town is responsible for. This board is responsible for.
Yeah. And I think her point is, and it's a good one, is that nobody's accusing
We're not accusing
anybody of
anybody.
anything. We just
Right.
have
We just want
questions
to
that
get
we
all
want
the
answered.
information that
Yeah.
is needed,
Make
so
sure that's
that this is
perfectly
done right.
clear, right, yeah.
That this is done right.
So let me ask you, just one more final thing, which is worst-case scenario, right? We go ahead and do all this extra effort, get all these questions answered, get this, write up this beautiful report, send it over to MHP, and they say, yeah, well, we're doing the value analysis, and it's not really relevant, and so.
At least, you know, we have the satisfaction of it.
But I don't think
Okay.
MHP
As long as
is
we're
gonna do that.
comfortable with that, as a I'm not saying that's likely, I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying, as long as we're comfortable doing our due diligence and let the cards fall wherever they may.
Well,
Right.
then, and I guess, while we're talking to them, I guess my point would be, if there was a payment made, payments accumulating to almost 600,000 paid to a vendor, that he's already told me there's no existing invoices for that vendor.
Okay,
No contract for that vendor. How does MHP view that?
right.
And also the
My experience has been they
$225,000.
disallow
So they
it,
cut it.
but that's been on a construction home project, not on an apartment complex.
Okay,
Obviously, somebody framed those buildings, so
Yeah.
obviously there was a cost there.
yeah,
But without invoices, without backup, without something other than a letter from the contractor saying he paid me this money.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't
We
say.
can't verify anything. We don't know
Fair enough.
where the project, where the efforts were spent.
And also, I'd like to know where that $225,000, the one that's
That's, to me, that's already,
a dead issue.
Yes.
Do you feel comfortable calling David Rockwell, mano a mano, and having a conversation? I think this is, and say, look, we're doing due diligence, this is what we need to do, we have unanswered questions, we're going back and forth, we don't have all the, and give specifics.
Yeah.
And in a conversation, I think an awful lot can be accomplished in a conversation that can't be done in email and letters, through Nancy Lucia. And wonderful as she is, and she's on vacation this week, you need to talk with the
So,
person.
the thing is, what I could say is, we will get you some supporting document. You will write up something. We will send in a return request for an extension, say like July 31st or September, October, or whatever the thing. In the meantime, let's have it in an official return request. After that, you can call him and you can explain it to him. Hey, these are all the things. Can we get an extension? That's all.
I'm happy to do that.
So if he wants to talk to our town accountant, let him talk.
The other part is to ask why a value analysis versus a cost analysis. That you need to explain it to people, right? And we don't understand why they would choose to do that. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, that seems to be a, good idea.
Just making some notes here.
So we're gonna call, I think maybe the first thing is to have a conversation with town council and, and let her know what transpired tonight and
Well, I
what,
think it's gonna be the gentleman who works in the other firm for this.
our town council's not doing it?
Well, I think it's gonna be who,
Dennis, you're talking about
Dennis,
Dennis Murphy, who's
yeah.
part of, not town council.
not,
So our town council has nothing to do with this?
Well, eventually, perhaps.
Hasn't
Dennis
yet, no.
Murphy's familiar with the whole issue.
Okay, well then,
yeah.
maybe tomorrow you should call, call Dennis Murphy and have a conversation with him and, explain to him that, that our CPA did come before the board last night and these are the issues that we
Yep.
have,
And I think he's fairly up to date
He
on,
knows.
how this is coming along.
But I still think that July 31st.
Yep. Yep.
That's what I'm
Fair
shooting for.
enough. So what I'm gonna do is, as you mentioned, the town administrator's on vacation this week. I think, is she back in the office next
No,
week?
next week's
Next week.
I think.
Monday.
So we have till next Friday, so I'm gonna reach out to her early next week, and then we'll figure out the logistics of, because she's been reaching out to MHP in the past. We'll figure out the logistics.
But I would still have a conversation with Mr. Murphy tomorrow to get,
Yep, we'll update him on what
and then
we've
just let us,
decided tonight.
let the rest of us know what's going on.
It's fine with us. Fine with me.
That sounds good. Do you have everything that you need from us at this
yeah,
time?
it's just more of, sometimes I can only present facts and I don't know the, legal steps or whatever, and I'm always conscientious of bills, and that's why I say, I don't know whose responsibility is to go back and review invoices that may have been missed, or, how, MHP would view the fact that, we traded services for the down payment on a house that has nothing to do with this project, you know what I'm saying, or whatever. Would they just disregard those expenses? Did they want them included? Or, or if we can't get the information, what would be the procedures? I don't, like I said, all the parties have been very cooperative. I want to make that clear. I just didn't feel it was my responsibility at that point to start going through tons of invoices. And the other thing is, there were a lot of expenses paid via American Express. And when I questioned him if he looked at the American Express bills to see if there were backups to these expenses, because we're talking $80,000, $100,000 of American Express payments in one payment.
Yeah.
And he couldn't recall. So that's wicked, I think, important too, is you gotta go back and look at those American Express payments. And Mr. Ali produced boxes of American Express bills and had stuff in the back of them. But, you know, it was at that point, you know, whose responsibility it is? Is it the CPA he originally hired to go back and go through all this stuff?
Yeah.
Or is it, you want me to do it? I just, again, it cost-wise, I don't know who's responsible for paying what, and I just didn't want to cross any lines.
But isn't that the responsibility when a CPA is hired to do a cost certification on a 40B project? Isn't it their responsibility to look at everything and not just certain things?
No, they are.
I'm not putting the
they're-
blame
no,
on
they're
anybody. I'm
supposed
just
to do
asking a general
They're supposed to do what they do is they call it testing. And so what he did is he made a list of vendors, and the amounts paid to those vendors come out to be about 51% of the total bills paid on the project. So they're not required to look at everything, but if we pick a particular vendor to review, then yes, he should be pulling that vendor's invoices or that vendor's file and comparing the invoices to the amounts paid, looking at the description on the invoice to make sure it's applicable to that particular project. Yes, that would be
So
normal procedures.
the perfect example would be the National Lumber.
Correct. Pulling the
You'd wanna
national
know-
lumber bills.
Okay, you said you paid this much amount to National Lumber, okay?
Right.
How much of that was for this project?
Right. And again, his analysis said, well, National Lumber came back and said total paid was 2,200,000 something, but on this project it was only 1,900,000. And he said, well, the difference is because there were other projects that were included that National Lumber gave him the information on. So that's not acceptable. You have to actually look at the invoices. But
Is there one more comment back
You
here?
know, paying by American Express just blows me away. That's a lot of frequent flyer miles that somebody's getting, you know? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. The whole process is so questionable, really questionable, and due diligence.
Yeah, but the real questionable for me is, you know, the MHP want to be done within a week. That's a real question for me.
Yeah, so.
They want to get it done in a week.
Yeah, that's another potential, so let's talk about that just briefly. What if we get to ask the extension next week and they say no?
We won't be.
And then I think it's legal, then it's a legal situation where the lawyer has to call MHP and say that, you know, you have a legal obligation, you can't fulfill that obligation given the unreasonable thing, that you're not willing to sign off on the report, and that they then bear the cost and burden of approving the report without the town's approval or something to that nature. I mean, you know, lawyers, they put anything in writing and make it sound good.
See, but I would think that,
Then, you know, why you are thinking now, you know, let's decide later on. If
I
they say
just don't
no-
understand why a subsidizing agency would go out and provide all this, you know, the money and all, you know, the comprehensive permit, you know, for them to come out and do a project, and then at the end of the project, not listen to the town, when the town is telling them, there's a problem, you know, we have questions, and then for them to turn around and say that they almost just
Yeah, you
don't
would hope
care.
it wouldn't happen.
Because it's in their interest, you gotta understand, they're loaning that money and they're making a lot of money on the money they loan. So if they loan $8.6 million, they're getting a crap load of money, interest on that $8.6 million compared to that $8.6 million sitting in the bank. So the higher the costs are on this project, the more beneficial it is to MHP. If you lower the cost on the project, that's not as beneficial to MHP.
So fine for them.
It's in their interest to have higher costs for a more dense project, because then you can justify the density of the project.
And this is why all these towns hate 40B projects, is because they're all for themselves and they don't care about the town. And that's exactly what's happening here. They don't care about the town and what happens. They just want it done because they need to get to a certain point, so.
Can we
All
move
right.
on?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've been very, very helpful. I'll be in touch with you soon again.
Okay.
Okay, so hopefully you'll get a hold of Mr. Murphy tomorrow.
Yep.
And then send us an email, let us know what transpired, and see what, he tells, what our next step is.
Okay.
Whether we should be,
And don't presume anything without evidence, guys.
Well, I understand that, but the thing is that,
Never do.
if he suggests that we, get a hold of MHP as soon as we can to,
Yep.
to get an extension, then I think we should do
If
it.
you need something from me, email me and I'll be glad to write something up that you
Perfect.
can use to talk to them
All right.
if you need to.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
All right.
All right, so, let's see, so we did that, okay, what about the signatures required for the accounting office?
So let's do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's do that now. So again, this is signatures in case one member of the board needs to
You
sign.
need to make a motion.
Yeah, we
I'll
do.
make a motion that we sign the required accounting office signatures for invoices and timesheets.
Is there a second?
Yeah, but we means what? Who?
All members,
All the
all the
full members?
full-time members.
Okay. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's 3-0, Toby.
We're gonna put back the reorganization of the ZBA board to our July meeting. And I would suggest that the chair send a note to the town administrator and explain to her that we had a quorum, but we didn't have a full board, and so we're gonna wait until July to do this. I don't know if you need a motion or not, that's,
No.
No, and I think we can just table that till the next
and
meeting.
then we have the minutes for
Oh, yes.
executive session. I read them.
I can't vote on that one because I was not present.
All right, so we
So
can't,
let's table it.
so we have to table this because we need,
Yeah,
we need,
we need one more.
we need more. But wait a minute, though. I thought that on minutes it didn't,
It's true.
No, that's
So
fine.
there's
Let's
3 of
table
us.
it.
Okay.
You really need
No,
to.
let's table it.
Yeah, that's fine.
all right,
That's
okay,
fine.
so we'll table that, okay. There was nothing on the open session because Toby didn't get a chance to finish that, so we'll push
Nope.
that off.
Yep.
Anything for the treasurer financial report? Toby?
Oh, I have
Oh, you
that.
have it?
Because
Yeah, that's it.
Is that here?
the file is
Is it under there?
Nope.
That's nothing.
there should be a pile that says Chris there.
That's not it.
Let's see, KP Law,
I don't see anything.
Where is that pile? Oh,
Did
it
I
says
take?
Chris.
Yeah, there it
I
is.
think it's
Oh, it's under
attached
here,
to that.
okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, good, all right, let me just sign my name here.
Never doubt what Toby tells you. That's what we just learned right there.
Okay, I know that at our last meeting, I asked that the chair contact Mr. Ali and Mr. Haverty about the as-built.
Yep.
And I'm just wondering, because I've talked to VHB, and they agreed that we should be getting an as-built from him for that project. And
Right.
as soon as we get it, that we should send it to them. They
Yep.
will go out and they will review it.
Yep.
They will send us, an update on, if everything's there.
Yep.
Once that's done, then they'll send us a bill. Once the bill comes in and we pay it, and then we know that there's nothing else outstanding, and we feel comfortable, then we would authorize the chair to go ahead and send a letter to the town accountant to go ahead and release whatever money
Yep.
is left there back to Mr. Ali.
Yes.
But that would be a vote from the board,
Yep.
and we have to make sure that everything is, we have the as-built.
So that's for the
Yes.
next meeting, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So I didn't want that issue to complicate what we talked about.
No, that's fine, that's fine.
But I completely agree with everything you just said.
Okay.
So that works. I think that's everything.
Okay.
The next scheduled ZBA meeting is Thursday, July 18, 2019.
We
at
don't
7
know.
at
We
7
don't know.
PM.
We'll see.
We don't know.
Well, that's
the
when
next
it's,
regular meeting.
that's the next regular meeting.
Next, you put it for next regular meeting, but we don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Motion to adjourn?
a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Motion.
Motion, second.